The 3DS releases are slowing down greatly now, and ever since the Switch release, we've seen less and less. Yet Nintendo still hasn't given up on the budget price handheld as of yet, as we still see the odd release here and there. And Kirby Epic Yarn is the latest in what seems to be a series of Wii and Wii U ports to the handheld. So let's see how it did, shall we? Kirby Extra Epic Yarn, to give it its full name, is an enhanced port of the 2010 material-based platformer. This version takes the Wii game and ports it to the 3DS, along with some new stuff to make it appeal to both new and returning players. Plot-wise, it's your typical Kirby fare here. Kirby is just wandering around minding his own business, then this evil wizard-like guy called Yin Yan turns up. Kirby and him get into a bit of a do, and then Yin Yan transports Kirby into the magical world called Patchland. When Kirby gets there, he realizes he's actually made of yarn and can't swallow enemies, so begins this adventure with Kirby trying to save Patchland, defeat Yin Yan, and hopefully return home. It's a cute little tale that is narrated by a charming narrator that helps bring this story to life. As for the gameplay, it's not your typical sort of Kirby game, as it's more in line with the Yoshi Island series. Yes, you still complete platforming levels, but there's a much more bigger focus on collecting various collectibles that are scattered throughout the game's many levels. The main collectible here are beads, which are littered throughout the levels. There's a medal system tied to it, and depending on how many beads you can get upwards of a gold medal for each level. As for the difficulty of the game, well, it's a cakewalk. Enemies don't pose any threat whatsoever. The only real threat is that if you get hit by an enemy, you lose some of your beads. Similar to what happens with Sonic if he gets hit by an enemy in his series. Another thing is that there's no fear of a game over, as Kirby just can't die. If you fall down a pit, you just reappear minus a few beads. Kirby games have never really been too taxing, so the difficulty isn't really that big of a problem. But if you do want a bit of difficulty to your Kirby game, then Extra Epic Yarn has a cool new exclusive harder mode called Devilish Mode. In this mode, Kirby is constantly being stalked by a flying demon thing that follows you around all the level. You can attack it, but it'll come back after a few seconds, so it's probably best to try and avoid and ignore it. Kirby also has a health bar, and when he gets hit, his health depletes. If your health is completely depleted, then you have to start the level from the beginning, which does add a bit of challenge to the game. Though it would have been nice if there was some checkpoints in the levels, as some levels can get quite long. Another new addition to the game is the inclusion of Ravel abilities, which turns this Kirby game into more of a traditional Kirby game. Special hats pop up throughout each level, and these offer various different abilities that grant Kirby a special power. We have ones that give him a sword, one that offer him button bombs, and one that grants Kirby the ability to knit giant balls of yarn. These new abilities are a fine new addition, but you can tell that they weren't in the original game, as they feel kinda odd at first, as they don't really fit in with the levels. It's sort of like that you've hacked the game to make Kirby super powerful, as these powers actually make an already easy game easier. And considering these power-ups also appear in the Devilish mode as well, it actually makes that mode super easy as well, so probably an option to turn them on or off would have been a good idea. But enough negativity for now, as the game's levels are a truly wonderful piece of work. From the first level all the way to the last, each of the levels feel incredibly unique and full of charm. The levels all have their own sort of theme to them. We have some levels where Kirby even transforms into a giant tank, penguin and fire truck, and these are certainly fun distractions that does add a nice bit of variety to the game. In the downtime between levels, you can use the beads that you've collected throughout the levels to buy decorations and furniture for Kirby's own little flat. It's a nice little feature that was already included in the original game, but in this version there's a load of new items for Kirby to choose from. As for the rest of the other new stuff included in the game, we have two new mini-games in Slash and Bead and DDD Go Go Go. Slash and Bead sees you take control of Meta Knight as you go through levels flying and slashing things up to try and get as many beads as possible. As for DDD Go Go Go, this is essentially an endless runner that sees DDD going from one side to the other trying to get as many beads as possible. Both these mini-games aren't very substantial and won't take too long to complete, but they're fun little distractions nevertheless. As for the game's length, it's actually pretty lengthy for a Kirby game, especially compared to Star Allies, taking around the 7 to 8 hours to complete the main game. It's a pretty decent length if you ask me. If you do want 100% it by getting all the medals, completing the game on both normal and devilish mode, and trying to get all the furniture pieces, then that will certainly add quite a few hours, probably upwards to the 15 to 20 hour mark. The only thing that's missing from this version is the co-op multiplayer that was in the original. Gone as the second player, playing as Prince Fluff, it's just Kirby for the long haul here. It's a shame that they never decided to release this game on the Switch, as then the co-op could have returned, and I think that would have been a great game for the Switch. Presentation wise now, the game looks pretty good for a port of a 9-year-old Wii game. There's a noticeable dip in graphics here, but that's to be expected. But if you've never played the game before, you probably won't take much notice of this. For a 3DS game though, it does look great with plenty of detail, and it does run lovely on the 3DS as well. The only disappointment is the lack of 3D visuals, which is a shame, but as Nintendo has seemed to distance themselves from the 3D feature by not including 3D in many of their titles for the past couple of years, it's not really surprising. As for the game's audio, it's also fantastic. It's a typical mix of upbeat and whimsical tracks that the Kirby series is known for. Conclusion time now, and Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn is a wonderful trip down memory lane for those like me who played the Wii original, and a fantastic new Kirby game for players who never. This 3DS version is very faithful to the original, only excluding the game's co-op multiplayer, but to make up for that, Nintendo's included a decent amount of new content to make it worth a double dip. The new Devilish mode does make the game more difficult, but the new Ravel abilities kinda contradict the difficulty by making the game much more easier. It's a shame they didn't bring the game to Switch, but it does fit the 3DS well, and is a really lovely game to be one of the 3DS's final titles. So that's why I'm giving Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn an 8 out of 10 with the title of great. Thank you for watching my review, like, rate and subscribe, and until next time, happy gaming. Bye!